To be sure, these are in the first instance psycholinguistic studies, concerned primarily with the intelligibility of referring expressions when present out of context. The acoustic properties of the referring expressions are measured as part of an effort to explain to observed differences of intelligibility. Nevertheless, these studies fit the mode discussed in this section, in the sense that the acoustic properties in question are treated as direct correlates of givenness. In particular, none of the studies make any attempt to control for the presence or absence of pitch accent. They proceed without assuming any distinction between accented and unaccented, and therefore treat the acoustic differences that they find as a direct reflection of discourse status. This neglect of pitch accent was called into question by Hawkins and Warren, who performed the same sort of study as Fowler and Hudson. Hawkins and Warren showed that accentedness, not givenness per se, was the main source of differences in intelligibility. Duration correlates with accentedness, and accentedness correlates with givenness, but the continuous acoustic properties measured by Fowler and Hudson are properly seen as a reflection of accentedness and hence only indirectly of givenness. In fact, more recently, Bird have shown that when accent is duly controlled for, there is still a different effect of givenness on the duration and intelligibility of referring expressions. Moreover, it appears that accentedness is not especially well correlated with givenness anyway, in the sense that the words may be accented in many contexts, even if they refer to given referent. That is, it appears both possible and useful to distinguish categorical or linguistic reflexes of givenness, such as accentedness, from paralinguistic or continuous correlates, such as duration and precision of articulation. For an extended illustration of potential usefulness of phonological constructs in explaining the function of intonation, consider a series of experiments on intonation and emotion by his collaborators. This is an area of study in which instrumental approaches have been widely adopted. In particular, there are many studies in which investigators identify a list of emotions in advance, and then set about trying to identify acoustic parameters that correlate with the chosen emotion. Instead of following this procedure, Rudd-based testable hypotheses on two different sets of assumptions broadly corresponding to the two approaches to intonation that we have been discussing. Ladd and Shirvama refer to these two approaches as the covariance view and the configuration view. However, these terms are based on statistical notions. Statistical notions. Convariance view involves the claim that there are direct acoustic cues to emotional message, independent of any linguistic message being expressed, and that these cues are continuous or parametric variables that co-vary with the message. The configuration view is the idea that the intonation has a linguistic structure involving constructing categories such as rise and fall, and that in statistical terms, the emotion is conveyed at least in part by configurations of category variables. In the terms we're using here, the covariance view is the one underlying most instrumental work, while the configuration view presupposes a notion of intonational phonology. In order to evaluate the validity of these two views, Ladd and Shirvama asked judges to rate the emotional force of a set of ordinary utterances. The utterances were all questions and were all taken from recording of spontaneous speech. One set of conditions was designed to test the assumptions of covariance or a non-phonological approach. In some of these conditions, the utterances were modified in various ways to render the words unintelligible, and in one condition, the judge rated only transcripts of the sentences. Not surprisingly, there was good agreement among the judges on the emotional force of the modified utterances, and little agreement on the transcripts. This part of the experiment thus shows very clearly that some of the emotional message of an utterance is indeed non-phonological, works according to the assumptions of the covariance view. In a subsequent part of their study, however, Shriver, Ladd, and Shirvama asked the judges to write the sentences in their original form without any acoustic manipulations and analyze the results looking for categorical effects. Such effects appeared unambiguously, even on a very crude phonological categorization of the intonation contour by final pitch movement, boundary rise versus boundary fall, and the categorization of the utterances as either yes, no, or WH question word questions. Ladd and Shrivaram showed that the judgments were affected by certain combinations or in their term configurations of categories. For example, yes-no question with a final fall, but not any of the other three combinations were just strongly challenging. In the same way, there was a strong interaction of contour type and question type in the extent to which utterances were rated agreeable and polite. Raising yes-no questions and following WH questions, i.e., the combination of intonation and sentences type that are commonly supposed to be normal or unmarked, were rated high on these scales, while following yes-no questions and raising WH questions were rated low. Shara, Rad, and Shilberman's findings suggests that in order to understand how intonation conveys emotion, it is not enough to look for continuous acoustic variables that directly signal the strength of some emotional message. In addition, it is necessary to consider the categorical presence or absence of certain intonational elements at specific points in the contour. Boundary rise versus boundary fall, in conjunction with other categorical linguistic properties of utterances, e.g., question type. Experiments that ignore the phonological structure of the suprasegmental cue may simply fail to address part of the problem.